Today we're going to discuss data tabulations and how to read them. If you remember back from our lecture on quantitative data, we're typically surveying hundreds of consumers. So it's not easy to read respondent by respondent level data across hundreds of consumers to understand what the majority think and feel and say and do. So what you see up on your screen right now is a set of data tabulations for a survey that we fielded for Columbia. This study was for Barnes & Noble. This is the way our tables typically look. They're typically run in Excel. And there's a few key concepts I want to discuss with you so that when you start reviewing your data tabs, you're that much more familiar with them. So if we look in column A, what column A contains is every single question that we asked in our questionnaire in questionnaire order. So you'll notice there's question 2, there's question 3, and etc. It just keeps going on in questionnaire order. That allows you to easily find a question in a questionnaire and look up what the answers are on an aggregated basis. Going across the top here, we have what we consider and what we call a banner. Now, a banner consists of many different banner points, and these banner points are custom. The researcher decides what they want to run all of the data by. So typically we have a total column, and then we run the data tabs usually by a bunch of different demographic subgroups, so that if we were interested in looking at how different subgroups answered each of the different questions, we're able to do that easily without having to run any different additional data, say in SPSS or in some other kind of cross-tab package. So if we look quickly across at this banner, you can see we've run these tabs by males and females, so by gender. We ran it by 3 different age groups. Because this was for Barnes & Noble, it was important to understand where people buy books, so whether they buy online, mass merchant, at an independent bookstore, at a chain bookstore, what region they lived in, and then whether or not they lived in urban, a suburban, or city, a small town, or city areas. You can choose any banner points that you wish to, depending on your topic of interest and depending on what key subgroups you'd like to look at the data by. The next key concept I'd like to discuss with you is how to actually read the data tabs. So down here, below the question number, it shows you how many respondents answered that question. So if we look at our first question in our questionnaire, which was gender, you'll see that we have 502 respondents answering that question. And that consists of all of the completes or our total sample base for this research. What you'll notice up here are the proportions or percentages how the consumers answered that question. So out of 502 respondents, 48% were male, 52% were female. If you also remember back to our discussion, you'll remember we talked about how for quantitative data, we don't read frequencies, we only read percentages. And our tables help you to only do that by only showing you the proportion or percentages of people who answered each question rather than the frequency of people who answered each question. The way we know that banner point is correct is if we look over here under our male banner point, 100% of the respondents clicked on male. Conversely, under the female banner point, 100% of females are here. Now, the thing to keep in mind when reading data tabs is you're to read down a banner point and over across here. So think of it as a backwards L. Never read data tabs looking this way across and up. That would be incorrect. So again, if we wanted to look at, let's look at age. If we wanted to know the total number, the proportion of those respondents in our survey who were 18 to 21 years of age, that would be 10%. So we could say, if we were writing a report, 10% of our respondents were between the ages of 18 and 21. Down here, where we have average, we've taken an average across all of the ages. So if we wanted to, we can also say, among our total respondents, our average age for this survey was 32 years of age. Okay, so always read down and then across. The other key concept I want to discuss with you is the percentages here that are highlighted in blue and red. And I want to go to the next question here. So what does the blue highlighting and red highlighting mean? If you remember from our discussion on sampling, we need to find significant and meaningful differences in order to find out if different subgroups answer things differently. So in this case, if we wanted to know, our question here we asked was, which of the following, if any, have you done in the past 6 months? Have you purchased a physical hard copy book, purchased a pair of shoes or boots, or purchased a smartphone accessory? If we wanted to look among our total respondents, we would be able to say everybody purchased a physical or hard copy book. 86% also purchased shoes. 67% purchased a smartphone accessory. Now, if we wanted to look, if it was important for us to look among males and females to determine if they have purchased different things at different levels in the past 6 months, we would look at males here and we would say 76% of males purchased a smartphone accessory in the past 6 months. If we look at females, 60% of females purchased a smartphone accessory. Because males are highlighted in blue with an up arrow and females are highlighted in red with a down arrow, what that lets us know is that there's a significant difference between males purchasing smartphone accessories and females purchasing smartphone accessories in the past 6 months. So if we are writing the results of this question for a report for a client, what we would say is, in general, 67% of our consumers purchased a smartphone accessory. However, males were more likely than females to purchase a smartphone accessory in the past 6 months. The other thing that I want to show you that you have when you get your data tabs, not only will you have a banner here that's outlined, but depending on how many different subgroups of interest that we're looking at, you might have 2 or 3 different banner points. Now, when you look across at each of those banner points, column B will always remain the same in each of your banners. And what that represents are the total respondents who answered your survey. What will change are the banner points up here going across. So when you open your data tabs for the first time, become familiar with what were all the points that were run with these data tabs that you have access to look at all of these different questions by all of these different banner points. The other thing I want you to become familiar with is for questions, especially where we have the competitive set. So we've talked about it's important to understand how consumers feel about your brand. In this case, since this study was conducted for Barnes & Noble, it's important for us to understand how consumers feel about Barnes & Noble. It's also important for us to understand how consumers feel about the entire competitive set. And what a grid table will allow you to do is look easily at the questions that you asked consumers to evaluate each brand in your competitive set. Again, if you're going to read this tabs, you would be able to look at, if you wanted to read the results among Barnes & Noble, you would be able to say, Barnes & Noble, 14% of consumers felt Barnes & Noble was cold and impersonable, whereas 50% of those evaluating Barnes & Noble felt Barnes & Noble had a wide selection of books to choose from. Okay. Conversely, only 18% of those evaluating Target felt that Target had a wide selection of books to choose from. All of grid tables will be run in this format by each of the different questions that we ask the competitive set. The last thing I want to discuss with you is the open-ended data that we have. Normally for quantitative surveys, 80% of our survey is quantitative in nature and will be shown in data tabs aggregated simply the way we have shown here. However, if you remember from our discussion on quantitative surveys and survey development, you are allowed to ask a few open-ended questions to get consumers' feedback in their own words. So what you will have here is a file that's called, a sheet that's called entitled Open-End Tabs. And what that will show you is for each consumer, it's a respondent by respondent level file. It will show you their gender, their age, and in this case, the answer to the question that we asked them to type in their responses for. So for instance, for this one, what, if anything, do you like about visiting your local independent bookstore? And this person, this female, aged 35 to 39, said, I'm in my world. Okay? You have the ability to sort based on all females if you'd like, or even if you'd like to sort on, say, younger females. And if you really want to know what younger females think on this open-ended question, you now have access and you can go down and read all of those responses to get a feeling for what they feel like the reasons are that they like shopping in a local independent bookstore. For each question, open-end question that you asked, you will see the question in the banner here with the text, and then you will be able to look down to find that verbatim response for that respondent. Okay, so those are a couple of key concepts that I wanted to go over and share with you so that when you get your data tabs, you can become familiar with them. We'll go over the data tabs in more detail in our breakout sessions, but that's the first cut of looking at data tables and become familiar with how to analyze your responses and respondent level data.